Alrighty guys, so what you just saw there was a little time lapse of me throwing the motor in this thing. So that was a couple days ago. So I've gotten like quite a bit more done than just throwing the motor in. So let's go over some of the things that we did. So it was very easy to slide the motor in without, you know, I bolted this on, but this wasn't there. This bar wasn't here. So it kind of just went and slid right in. Okay. So what I wanted to do was, I was telling you guys before that I wanted to do the mid plate mounts. So I went ahead and made some brackets for that. Just some 1/8 inch steel and made a little L and drilled some holes in it and basically attached it, used the gusset to kind of strengthen it up. So we got that. And as I was doing that, so in order to put the mid plate in, you know, the mid plate mounts, I had to make sure that the motor was, you know, square, the drive shaft was straight in line with the crank and all that. So that took me a little time to kind of work through that. So I'll kind of go over that just a little bit of what I did. So you get your angle finder here, okay? And you basically, what you want to do is you want to come off the front of your balancer, you know, a flat spot, okay? And we're, whatever degree that is, it's 3.1 and it's headed down. Okay, so what I did was I basically adjusted the transmission mount up a little bit in order to get the drive shaft at that same 3-degree level, okay? I got it within 1 degree. No, less than a degree. It was like 3.1 on the balancer and I think like 3.4 or 3.5 on the drive shaft, which is really good. That's close. Okay, so that's step 1 to get that set where we want. And then I went ahead and worked on the adjustable rear end, okay? I had to end up lengthening the lowers a little bit, okay? Because once I got the drive shaft and I got the, you know, the crank center line all lined up, I wasn't at -2 degrees on my housing here. You know, I want to get -2 degrees down. So it was pretty much flat or a little higher, okay? So if it's flat and a little bit higher, that means you have to lengthen, or you could do one of two things. You could shorten the uppers, which would pull it down, or you can lengthen the lowers, which would move the housing back, which would in turn would also move it down. So I kind of ran out of room on the uppers to adjust it. So I went ahead and lengthened the lowers just a little bit and brought it right in. It's like 2.5 degrees negative. Okay, so you want your center line of your crank, the center, you know, your drive shaft to all be in line, and you want to have that nice -2, 2.5 degrees of pinion. Okay, so we have it set. That's pretty much done at that point for that. So at that point, I knew I was good to go and went ahead and made the mounts and bolted it all together. So ideally, I would have had the motor tilted up a little bit more, okay? Because I don't know if it's hard to tell, but the motor is tilted back. Well, obviously, you saw it. It's -3 degrees. So I would have rather not have that, but honestly, it's a packaging issue with this combination, okay? Number one, I'll tell you that the transmission, when I lifted it, it already touches the tunnel. Okay, so it's just now barely touching the top of the tunnel. So I can't go any higher with that. I can't go any lower with the front of the motor because if you look here, look at the clearance on my oil pan, okay? Now, I could get around that if I took the oil pan off, cut, you know, a slot in it, and then kind of fabricated something to that so that I could go around the K-member, and then I could lower the motor a little bit. But for me, I thought the best option was just to let it sit at, you know, a little downward angle compared to the chassis. Because I got the chassis pretty level right now. It sits pretty level, but you know, we have the motor just leaning back just a little bit. But it works, everything's set, and we should be good to go on that. So yeah, and I've been doing some, you know, there's just so many little things. You would not believe how many little things there are to do. I mounted a couple tabs here. I mounted a tab here for the catch can. Mounted a little loop here. Basically used the same stuff that's here. I went out and picked up some of this solid, it's like solid steel, you know, bar, I guess you'd call it, or solid steel rod. And I heated it up, bent it around, made a nice little bracket there, and welded it to the fuel pressure regulator mount. And that sits really nice. Okay. Went ahead and installed the flex fuel sensor. Now, we're not going to be using the flex fuel sensor as far as blending, okay? I don't foresee doing that. But I have it. I bought it a long time ago. I don't know, it was a long time ago, and I was supposed to install it when I was driving this thing on the street so that you can blend tables. You know, you can, if you put in some 93 octane, it'll recognize that and it'll blend into a different table. But I installed it just so I know what the content is, the ethanol content. I plan on doing some pump E85 on this thing, but ultimately when I'm racing it, most likely I'm gonna have to get like some real E85, like that 1 ethanol or Ignite or whatever, you know, whatever's available. It's more consistent and it's better fuel. So, but we have it installed, and this way we'll know, okay? What else have we done? Got the manifold mounted. Ran the oil drain back line, the oil feed line. Pretty much got all this ready to go. The reason this is off is because I still have to weld all these couplers onto the housing over there. So I got to work on that. Like I said, just a whole bunch of little things, and we haven't even started doing any of the cold side stuff. You know, I got to pull this throttle body off and put a coupler on there. And I mean, I've been working on this all week, and it's just little thing after little thing. So today what I'm working on is actually the mount for the fuel pump setup. Okay, so we have the fuel pump setup here that has its own little bracket, dual fuel pump bracket. Okay, it's a little aluminum bracket that clamps them together. And this is going to sit on this bracket I made right here. Okay, it's going to sit right on top of this. And then, you know, we'll pick up our feeds right here. So this is what I've been basically working on today. And I just got it done a few minutes ago. And you can see basically just a little U-shaped. I kind of welded on the ends there to make it look a little decent. And I'm getting better at welding. Not that great, but you know, you can see my welding is starting to improve. But yeah, I wanted this to be pretty strong, kind of stout. So that's I think that's 1-inch tubing, 1-inch square tubing there. And yeah, it fits nice and snug in between these rails here. Kind of pinches on its own. So I'll weld that in, and then we have a spot to mount our fuel pump. And I've also been running the lines over here. Most likely, I'm gonna have to change this little setup here as far as the lines go, because the fuel pump is in a much better position than it was in the white car. In the white car, I had to kind of cock it sideways. It was just kind of weird the way it fit, but this should fit a lot better, and I won't have to like loop the second fuel line, you know, the staged-in pump. I won't have to loop it around, hopefully. So I may have to make a few new lines there. But yeah, I got everything else pretty much set up pretty good. This goes through here, clears the steering really well up through here. Yeah, got to mount the nitrous solenoid to, there's a bolt there that I mount it to. And yeah, I haven't really done anything to the inside of the car. It's been mostly outside stuff. The only thing I did do was, like I told you guys, the transmission, since I shimmed it up to get that drive shaft in line, the cable, you know, the shifter cable, actually came in contact with the transmission and actually bent it a little bit. So I had to remove that because that's not going to work right there. I got to actually move it. I'm going to move it instead of this hole here. I'm gonna move it up forward where there's a little more clearance, and actually off to the side a little bit. There's a little more clearance over there where the transmission sits. So I'm hoping I can get it into there. It kind of sucks that I already cut a hole here, but I could probably get something to kind of glue it back together, and I don't know. It doesn't look that bad. Kind of hard to tell once you kind of fix it a little bit, but so yeah, I still have that to do. And we also got the cord in for the trans brake button that I need to install. So that's gonna have to go mounted up in here somewhere, and then to the steering wheel. And so the other thing is we'll have to make some kind of a hook for the steering wheel, because you know, you got the coil cord on there, and so you don't have to disconnect it. You know, you just want to kind of hang the steering wheel up here so it's not too far away from, you know, where you mount it. And yeah, I mean, it's coming along, but like I said, there's just so many little things, and it's just one after another. But I'm starting to see where we can maybe start thinking about firing this up, maybe by this weekend, maybe next, during middle of next week, hopefully, get this thing running, because you know, pretty much it's, oh, and I bolted in the fuel cell too, so that's all in the right spot. Oh, we got the Scott Rod panel that's gonna cover the fuel cell, okay? Goes this way. So hopefully you guys can kind of visualize what I'm gonna do. Once I'm gonna put this, you know, in there, it's gonna have a cutout. So this will be cut like so, okay? And it's gonna fit around the fuel cell, okay? So what I'll probably do is I have like this trim, yeah, this stuff here. I have some of this stuff here. It's like a split trim, and it's got glue inside of it. So my plan is to, once I cut the square out of there, I'll line it with that all the way around. So it's not like, you know, rubbing up and down on the fuel cell on the plastic. So yeah, I mean, it's just all kinds of little stuff. But anyway, I just wanted to give you guys an update, show you a little time lapse of throwing the motor in. And yeah, we're getting close, getting real close. It looks really good. Happy the way everything's turning out. Oh yeah, and don't get me started. We still got to do the exhaust. I don't even know what I'm going to do with the exhaust. I mean, worst case scenario, I could throw it back on the way it was in the other car. You know, I mean, just go right down that spot there and just exhaust it out the bottom. I was hoping to do something a little different. I still may do the hood exit. I kind of like the idea of hood exit just because of the simple fact that if we have some kind of a catastrophic failure, you know, if something is coming out of the exhaust, it's not going to go onto your tires. I mean, it sucks. It'll go onto your windshield and the hood and the roof and all that, but at least you won't wreck the car, you know, because if it goes down onto the ground, anything can happen. So that's somewhat of a safety deal. Another thing I did was, I don't know if you guys watch Cooper, he's got a 2J Camaro, and so, okay, he's pretty much got the same setup I do. He's got a Turbo 400 or a Power Glide, I forget which it is, but it's basically the same setup. He's got the ATF adapter and all that, and the transmission the tube where you check the transmission fluid comes up right here, okay? So the problem is with that is it's right next to the header, okay? And you know, if you push fluid out of there, you know, transmission fluid can catch fire. So what I did was I mounted this like little bracket here that actually pinches the top of the hose. It pinches it up underneath here. So it basically traps it. You can't get it, it won't come out. So in order for me to check the transmission fluid, I got to take these two screws out, here and here, these two, and for this to come down. So there's an O-ring on there. I'm hoping that that would keep, like if there's any kind of back pressure, that it would keep the fluid from coming out onto the header and catching fire. So that was actually something I saw his video and his car caught on fire, and that was the reason why. And you know, before I had the dipstick just sitting right next to the header. I mean, it was just basically zip tied up over here, and it was just laying there. So that's pretty dangerous if you know, if you overheat your transmission and fluid comes up out of there. So anyway, that's an update, guys. I don't know what else to tell you. I'm gonna keep working on it. I'll give you another update when I get, you know, some more things going. Most likely the next video I'll be starting it. I've been, you know, it's a little easier for me to just work and not videotape. I get way more done. It just, I don't know, when you're videotaping, you just kind of have to stop, put the camera over here, and you guys know how it is. But anyway, that's gonna do it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you're learning something, and thanks for following along. Check you all later.